Welcome into the Pats Nation. I'm Corso Catone is here. Joe's with us in the booth. You are watching us on YouTube. And hey, when you're on YouTube, make sure you check out our shorts and our short reels. Those are becoming very popular. A lot of comments. We leave the comments. We'll read them on the show. And while you're there, subscribe, hit that thumbs up, give us those likes. Those are the things we appreciate for sure. And but if you're listening to us, you're doing it on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, 790 The Score. And we want to hear from you in Heated Hotline, 855-313-PATS, P-A-T-S. Leave a message 24/7. We'll Joe will pick the one he likes, and let's hope it's yours. But you can email us in our mailbag, corso.catone@gmail.com. We have a lot of good ones. Always have a lot of good write-ins.
Always have a lot of good ones.
It's hard to pick. But we got a good one today. Got a lot of detail going on in Weekly Rewind. Hey, we're going to go through our draft recap, our full draft recap. So we're going to give you lots of things to talk about there. Hopefully Mark doesn't destroy his equipment through the process. And we're going to go into Coach's Corner and talk a little bit about who's making these decisions and, the little weasel, Eliot Wolf. Talked about him, too, a little bit. And
you just love poor Eliot Wolf.
We're also going to hear from one of you in Heated Hotline. And if it's the same as what it was for Catone yesterday, which, Joe, can I assume that it is?
It's going to be, yeah, for sure.
Okay, then it's going to be about Belichick and Miss Hudson. Woohoo! So make sure you're sticking around for that. Gentlemen, good morning. Good morning.
Yeah.
How are you?
Listen, it's post-draft. Post-draft, Chris, it's a letdown. It's depressing because we've got nothing to look forward to now. We've got a couple of mini camps. But then we really got nothing until training camp opens. I mean, it's a long drought now. Yeah, we like baseball. We're Yankee fans, obviously, but it's tough now, Chris. It's a long stretch.
Well, you know what we're going to actually have coming up this summer? Joe's putting it together. Is going to be a best of. There's once in a while we need a week off. You know what I mean?
We do. We need a little mental health.
And we need some load management. So
really
okay, LeBron.
Ourselves.
So make sure you're sticking around and paying attention to the best of Corso and Catone, the best of the Pats Nation. You're not going to want to miss that. But we got to get to it because we're going to waste any more time. We want to talk about the picks. We want to talk about the draft. We're going to do the Weekly Rewind, and we're going to do it now. Going back through the week, called a Weekly Rewind. Okay, it was terrible. It sucked. We hated it. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Have a good day. Okay. All right, Mark, here we go. So let's discuss this. Now, you and I, we did this show last week where we had a pre-record before the draft, but we knew what was coming. I mean, we talked a lot about Campbell.
We knew what the first pick was going to be.
And I think
it to be,
but I think they had that decision made months ago, in my opinion. So let's talk about Mr. Will Campbell, the first pick in the draft. And congratulations, by the way, to all of the draft picks.
Congratulations.
These guys worked their ass off.
We're going to say stuff and we're going to disagree with picks, but listen, you're right, Chris. Take your hats off to all these guys. Everybody in the league that got drafted, not just Patriot players. I mean, Chris, being a coach, coaching high school football, youth football. One of your guys, Ben Morrison, got drafted. Congratulations to him. You coached him, right?
Yep, Tampa Bay. And by the way, that phone call to the coach they make was rated like the most popular one. He was in tears the whole time talking about, y'all never going to let you down. And by the way, he will not let the Tampa Bay Buccaneers down for sure.
Well, you said nobody studies film like him.
Nobody. No one.
So anyway, congratulations to all these kids because it's a lifelong dream. They made it. It's a big day for these kids, but now the work begins, right? Now the work begins, and now you and I get to trash the picks because that's what we do, Hey.
Yeah. So screw you all. You're NFL players now. You're all stiffs. Here we go. So,
was there any moment that you guys thought Shedeur Sanders was coming over here?
No. We should talk about him at the end of this segment, though, Chris. We should talk about that because that was the story of the draft. So we should probably leave a couple of minutes at the end to talk about that. I'm glad you brought that up, Joe.
All right. Well, let's shut the hell up now and talk about Will Campbell. What do you say, Mark?
Let's do it.
I don't have a problem with the pick if he turns out to be the left tackle. Now I'm encouraged by hearing Vrabel, forget Eliot Wolf, he's a stooge, but Vrabel talking about this is left tackle. He's going to play left tackle. Fine. I'm encouraged by that because I don't want to draft a guard at the number 4 pick. We talked about this.
Listen, I'm going to be honest with you, Chris.
That's what we're fine.
If Vrabel thought he was going to have to kick inside, I don't think Vrabel would have drafted him. I think Vrabel legitimately thinks this kid can play left tackle. I think he consulted, obviously, with Doug Marrone. I think they consulted with Scarnecchia. I think Scarnecchia went through a lot of tape on this kid. And I think that his decision picking him there was, no, he's my left tackle. I'm not making him a guard. If he's going to be a guard, I'm not taking him here. And so I think Vrabel was pretty secure in the fact I'm taking him because he's my left tackle and he can play the position.
And look, I understand about the short arms. Now, I told everybody I don't have as big of a problem with the short arm thing and all of that. I never had a problem with that. Well, I did at one point, but I don't. Okay. And to me, I wanted Jalen Walker because my grade of him at the number 4 pick was higher. And if you were going to play him at guard, I just didn't like the conversations that were taking place about he's probably going to play guard. He's probably going to play guard. But if he's going to play tackle, and here's the thing with him, his athleticism, his footwork, okay, is what his ability. Yeah, it's next level, and his ability to refit his hands, after the first contact will make up for some of that short arm leg. So I mean, as long as he's willing to work and be coached by Scarnecchia and Marrone, which this kid said he's going to fight and die for May. So he's got the mental, makeup to be coached, Mark.
No, was it him that they said about he gave Vrabel a stiff arm shove and knocked him on his ass?
Yeah, Vrabel got on the sled, and he jammed that sled back and knocked Vrabel on his ass. So I think Vrabel wants him to move in with him. He wants to live with this kid. He loves him so much. So again, if he plays left tackle, good pick. He's got the right mindset. He's a tenacious kind of guy. Great.
Yeah, he's got the listen. And supposedly, Chris, he's a leader, right? So everybody on that LSU team looked up to him. He was the leader on the offensive line, one of the leaders in the locker room. They released a clip, Chris, of him doing deadlifts right down at LSU, and the guys are all around him, the team, and he's putting up like 660 right on a deadlift with ease. Like he obviously could have went over 700, and so they put the bar on him, and the person video. He smirks and he winks like, yeah, all right. And he puts it right up and the place goes wild. Like the weight room went wild, right? Yeah. So he had a command of the team and the weight room, and he was obviously a leader. And I think that's the other thing that Vrabel really liked about him.
Yeah. That's what people do when I go in the weight room. They cheer and scream and yell. When
Joe,
I lift 700 pounds.
He's finally here.
Yeah. They're yelling, get the hell out of here. You don't belong. So, okay. So we've discussed Campbell at length. So let's get to the second pick now. What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about.
So 38th overall. They made some trades and did some things once you hit the third round, but they picked where they picked for the first 3 picks, I believe.
Yeah, they did.
So. Second round, they take TreVeyon Henderson from Ohio State. Running back. Now the running backs out. Now the comp for this guy is like a Breece Hall. Some people are comparing him a little bit to Gibbs, is how he's going to be used from Detroit. Mm-hmm. But he's definitely a game breaker. He's an electric kind of player. Mark moves the change. Last season, he accounted for I think 22% of their big play production. Ohio State, obviously a national champion. He averaged 11 yards a catch. He runs a 4.43 or low 4s, where that means once he gets out in space, you're not catching him. He's pretty much gone. He's 5'10", 202, so he's not going to be an every down back. He's not a tackle-to-tackle guy. He's a guy that you're going to use at third down, catching the ball in the backfield, but his pass protection, Mark, is fantastic, phenomenal. Pass
protection's next level. Yeah, it's something you don't typically see out of a college back coming out.
No. This is a very, very good football player. However, I still stand
the 38th pick of the draft.
I still stand by what I've always said is I'm not taking a running back in the first 3 rounds. I'm just not doing it.
Yeah. And listen, So you're picking 38. Okay.
Yeah.
I believe the New York Giants were picking 34. I want to say, Chris, 33 or 34. I want to say 34. Giants had just traded back into the first round to take the quarterback Jackson Dart. They had used draft capital. So you could have traded with the Giants and moved up because the Giants, Chris, I forget who they took, but who they took would have been there at 38. Okay. The Patriots should have used a little capital then, moved into that spot, and took in Jaden Higgins. I'm sorry. Not Jaden Higgins. I'm sorry. Yeah, Higgins. I would have taken Higgins there. I absolutely would have taken Higgins there. Trade up, take Higgins. He's 6'4", ex-receiver. Gives you an element that you don't have on this roster, Chris. He can also play the slot. The comp to Jaden Higgins is Nico Collins, who's a number 1 wide receiver. And that's the potential Higgins had. He would have been a wide receiver 1. Okay? Yep. The potential was there to be a wide receiver 1. Okay? You don't take him. I would have traded up and took him there, Chris, not a running back. Or if you're going to stay pat, because you don't want to give up draft capital, with that pick, I would have taken Luther Burden.
Talk about him.
The wide receiver from Missouri, Chris, is electric. He's Deebo Samuel on steroids. He's better than Samuel. Coming out of college.
Not in reality on
not
steroids.
In reality on steroids. You know, it's metaphorically, right? Not in reality, okay? I didn't say he's on steroids. Take that back. But he is somebody, Chris, who everyone said has the potential to be a legit wide receiver 1 stud in the right system. And I think McDaniels would have been able to do that with this kid, with his system, because he would have had the kid all over the field. Okay. They said, well, you know, he's a little bit of a prima donna. Sometimes he doesn't like to practice, and he thinks he's a little bit better than he is. And
don't say the C word.
I'm going to say the C word. And well, he doesn't necessarily fit the culture of what Mike's trying to build here. Maybe a year from now, once the players Mike has brought in establish that culture in the locker room, maybe next year they draft a guy like that. Next year, if he's on the board, they'll draft a guy like that next year because now that culture's been established and you could bring a guy like that into the locker room. But they didn't want to do it this year, which to me is absolutely criminal. So who does Burden go to?
I was just about to say that. Who picks after that?
Chris's man, Chicago.
He
goes to Ben Johnson. You know Johnson's making him a wide receiver 1. This kid's gonna be the new Ahmad St. Brown. And that offense, he's gonna be Ahmad St. Brown.
Yep. So everybody out there, pay attention to that. Pay attention to Burden versus Henderson. And like
Higgins,
I said,
Higgins versus Henderson. Because if you traded, you could have very easily traded up with the Giants, Chris.
You could, but let's you keep it at the pick. You keep it at 38, 39.
Well, keep
right
it at
there.
the pick.
And you say,
okay,
let's pay attention to those 2 players. And not that I don't think TreVeyon Henderson is going to be a good player in this league. But remember the issue about taking running backs. People say, well, why don't you? Why? Because what happens is you take a running back. By the time he's done with his rookie contract, he's cooked. Most of them are cooked. They're done. You're not re-signing them. Meanwhile, Burden going to sign a big contract after that. All right. So before we get to break, I want to talk about well, you know what? Let's go to break, and we'll come back and talk about Kyle Williams. But this portion of Weekly Rewind was presented by CORSO Catone, the real deal New England Field Saturdays, noon Eastern. Make sure you're tuning in for Celtics playoff talk, Yankees, Red Sox, Catone's comments, and all of that. When we come back, going to continue with our draft breakdown. Stick around.
Guess what? I got a fever. And the only prescription is more
CORSO and Catone. Saturdays at noon.
Back in with more Pats Nation. Okay, Mark, let's continue on with this discussion because I know we're going to take a little while on this guy.
Yep.
3rd round pick, 69th overall. They take Kyle Williams, wide receiver out of Washington State. I would say they list the comp as Rashad Bateman for Baltimore. That's their comp to this kid. He's runs a 4.4, pretty much 4.4 straight. 40. He's what is he? 5'10", 190. Last year he had 70 catches for 19. Well, let's see here. Average 8.5 yards after the catch. 70 catches, 1,900 yards, 14 touchdowns last season. Huge production against nobody.
Against the little sisters of the poor.
Right. Now I will say this. He's the best. Now hear this. He's the best working as a flanker off the line. Okay. Why is that? See, he hunts free releases by doing that. By putting him set back as the off receiver, not on, doesn't really make him a true X. So you hunt for him to get off the line. Why is that, Mark?
Because he's 5'10", 190 pounds. He's got short arms. Like, what else? He's not going to fight press coverage, Chris, against a 6'2" corner. I'm sorry and listen, I know you want to get into the technical aspect of his feet and the quickness and how he jab steps, how he gets off the line. You've made some comparisons to how Devontae Adams when he was with Green Bay would get
those
off the line
steps,
of scrimmage,
yeah.
those hop steps, right? And he has those down really well, right? But the point you made, Chris, was, well, tell us what you saw on tape, and then I'll get into this further. Tell us what you saw on tape, because that's kind of where I'm going anyways.
Yeah. So when I watched film on him, I watched it twice. The first time I watched this footwork. Phenomenal footwork. Not good, great. Hop steps off the line, jabs a foot in, quick feet, gets a lot of separation and release based on his footwork. He comes to the top of routes, on back shoulder throws, on comeback routes. He's able to jab his foot in the ground quickly and make that move where he leaves corners and defensive backs spinning around. So his footwork was fantastic. And yeah, after catch, yards after catch, he's good. He's got speed. He can run away from some guys. Now, I go back and I watch the tape again. Now I'm looking at his hand placement. And I'm looking at what he does with his hands. He doesn't use his hands. He doesn't use his hands and arms to get off press. He doesn't use it to gain separation. He doesn't really use them at the top of routes. His hands are small. His arm length is short. So he doesn't use his hands to do that. Why is that important? It's important because when I watch the Stooges that he played against and the competition, I shouldn't say Stooges. They're all good athletes. But when I watch the competition he played at Washington State, it isn't very good. It's not like SEC. These guys weren't pressing him face-to-face press. They were soft pressing him, meaning they were pressed against him 3 yards off. So there was separation already. So he was able to use those hop steps off the line, or he was set back as the off receiver where he was a yard off the line of scrimmage. So he didn't have to use his hands. What's going to happen, Mark, when you got a 6'1", 200-pound corner pressed against him? He's going to have to use his hands.
Yeah. So, Chris, based on what you just said, I'm going to give you a concrete example of what you just described. In the Holiday Bowl against Syracuse, right? If you go back and watch that tape, because that's what I did, and I wrote some notes, right? He shows his potential, and he shows you exactly what you just described, Chris. Why he can stack corners vertically and create after the catch in space. He struggled. If you go back and watch the tape from the Holiday Bowl, he struggled when Syracuse's defensive backs got physical with him early in routes. There's a legitimate concern that bigger corners that are more physical NFL corners are going to be able to disrupt his timing and his throw off his game unless he's protected by alignment, which is what you just said about he's not a true X because they got to get him in alignment off the line in order to get that footwork moving and to get him off the line, Chris. His frame limitations aren't just about physical corners. He can't block. He's not going to be able to block in the NFL, Chris. That's one of the things that was glaring. Those limitations are going to prevent him from blocking, and they show up consistently when he's forced to fight through contact.
Always.
Notes that I wrote on him, Chris. I watched 3 or 4 different games, and that kept showing up, and I'm saying to myself, but what tape did they watch?
Yeah.
Because I watched it. I had him listed as a 4th-round grade. I didn't even have him in the 3rd round.
No, I didn't either.
4th-round grade for this kid just because of his size limitations, Chris.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm listening to all the puppets out there talking about how great this draft was, and it wasn't a terrible draft. It wasn't. I don't think it was an A. I think it was a B. But the point is, I'm listening to all these people out there, the puppets talking about this is a kid that's going to get separation. He's a true X. He's going to look.
He's got to get off the line and get the ball first, Chris.
Look at what he did against Travis Hunter. Here's the thing about that Travis Hunter game, and Mark pointed this out many times. That was from 2023, and that's before Hunter got coaching from Prime, and the other guys over there really got into the coaching that he needed, to become an excellent corner. Back then in 23, Hunter wasn't Hunter, and that was one play.
There was one play, and they kept showing it over and over. And you talked about, Chris, he can run away from people and separation. And if he can get off the line and get free. The ball, he's got to get free.
So for those of you out there that think that this guy could eventually become a number one, no, he's not a one. Now, listen, what? Fine, you want to use him as a two, a good two, where he's off the ball?
His ceiling, Chris, I listened to a couple of people, good analysts who know wide receivers in the NFL, not that we don't, and they said this kid's ceiling is wide receiver 2-3, wide receiver 2 at best, probably a 3 at best. This kid's limitation, he'll be a 2 at best. If he hits everything he's supposed to hit and becomes the best he can be in the NFL because of his size and his strength, he'll be a wide receiver 2. So you still didn't get a number 1 wide receiver, Chris, in this draft.
Everybody out there, don't get all geeked up about this guy yet listening to the puppets.
And you know what, Chris? They're going to get geeked up. They're going to get geeked up in May when he comes in shorts and T-shirts and runs away from everybody.
We'll talk about that.
You say to me, Mark, I don't want to hear one thing about shorts and T-shirts. It's useless.
Yeah, it is. So I want to talk about 4 other guys, and we got 10 minutes to do it. So next pick, the 95th pick, it was Jared Wilson, the center guard out of Georgia, which I thought, now from these picks going forward now, other than the safety, I thought were good picks. I love this guy, okay? This is a guy, he's going to start at center, and it's a perfect situation to come into with Bradbury behind him, in front of him.
You don't
Bradbury
think they'll the guard, Chris?
They may he may win that spot against Robinson and So and some of the other guys they got here. He may, but I think ultimately he's going to become
starting center
for years to come. I mean, this kid, he's only 21 years old. He was a 1-year starter for Georgia. Okay, he's athletic as hell, Mark. Great range. He's got and Ben to sink. He can sink underneath defenders to leverage his blocks really, really well, which means getting that snap back and being able to do that. He's a stout anchor and head up rushers. So I think he was the top pure center in this draft.
Yeah,
so I think it's a fantastic pick, Mark.
That was a great pick. Yeah, good pick. I agree. Totally agree with that, Chris.
So he may play guard. You're right, but we'll see.
But I agree with that. I like the pick. I do.
Now, Mark, talk about the 4th round pick, the safety out of Cal, Craig Woodson.
Okay, he can't. He's not going to play center field, Chris. No. He's a box safety. We need a box safety. I don't know if we need a box safety.
Yeah, we got like 4 of them.
Guys, he struggles, Chris, in coverage. Guys run away from him. I don't exactly know what the pick, where they came up with him from, Chris. I didn't have him anywhere near my board for safety. You and I mentioned plenty of safeties. He wasn't even on my board, and I don't even think he was on your board.
No. I mean, he was on there, but not here.
Here.
Why you wouldn't take Bowman here, out of the safety out of Oklahoma, who could be your center fielder?
Well, I told you when
we say center field, by the way, we mean single high safety when they're playing like cover, like man underneath, and you have one safety back 15 yards, somewhere like that.
And Chris, unless they saw enough on tape, maybe Vrabel saw enough on tape at the end of last year, and he thinks Mapu, who played well doing that high single safety the last couple of games of the season, maybe they think Mapu can play there, Chris.
Listen, this guy that they took is a cover 2 safety. He's a safety that plays into split. He's played split safety on that type of defense where you got a lot of cover 2, a lot of split safeties back there. He's okay with that.
But is that what we're going to be in?
I mean, some, but I see us in cover 1 a lot. I see us as somebody coming down as a robber, that a safety coming down as an anchor, playing that nickel guy, that sort of box safety like you're talking about.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris. Doesn't he struggle a bit with tackling?
Yeah, I mean, he's adequate in open field tackling. That's the word that was used.
So
adequate.
based on what you just described, he's only adequate at it.
No, he's going to have to be the guy that's left behind when they have that safety come down, and I don't think he can do it. So he's not a McCourty replacement if anybody thinks he is.
Okay, and that's what you and I were looking for in this draft, and that he's not it. So, Chris, in the 4th round, if everybody goes back to the tape last week, our pre-draft tape, I said I'm going to take him earlier than he should be taken. But I want him in my locker room, and I want him. In my 4th round, I said take Mondin from Georgia.
Yes. Yeah, I gave a linebacker. I gave another linebacker to Philly again. Right? I gave Kobe Dean, and now I give this guy.
I said to Chris last week in our pre-draft show, I said you might think I'm crazy. I know it's early for him, but I'm taking him in the 4th round because I want him. I'm taking Mondin, and Chris said a little early, but I get to thinking. You wouldn't have rather have had Mondin than this kid.
Oh, just wait. Wait till you see 2 years from now. Wait till you see what Mondin
goes on.
Linebacker from Georgia.
And the 5th round hits. I said to Chris, if he stays on the board long enough, Philly's taking him. And Chris said to me, Mark, they don't need another linebacker. I said, Chris, if he's on the board long enough, Philly's going to take this kid.
He did.
And Philly took him.
And they took him. So, a missed opportunity there.
Imagine that linebacker crew now. Whoa. Go ahead. Quick. Go ahead.
The last 2 players that I want to talk about are the 4th round pick, Farmer, these 2 picks I really, really like, Mark.
And I do too. Listen, the middle 3 picks, Chris, Wilson, Farmer, and Swinson, I think are 3 of the best picks in the draft. I mean, Campbell, we're going to see what Campbell. I love these middle picks. I love them.
I do too. You got Farmer as a defensive lineman out of Flint. They played at the right schools too.
By the way, Chris, 3 SEC guys they've taken: Swinson, Campbell, Wilson, SEC, right? Even Henderson, national championship team, right? They finally listened to us, Chris. You don't need to look at all these ridiculous schools. Yeah,
listen, you talk about arm length. This guy's got 35-inch arms, Farmer. He's got great snap quickness. This is a guy that's going to get his hand in the dirt and just push guys, okay? He's I got to get his size, though, but he's a big tackle. Okay. He's got great punching power, creates good separation too. His swim move is fantastic, and he finishes. So he goes, once he gets through, he closes. Okay. I had him like somewhere he was a top 100 player. I mean, they got him at 137, which is definitely a value, and he'll be a rotational guy. He'll come in that rotation. That guy. Then
he'll be a rotational guy this year as a rookie.
Oh, I believe that 100%.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I believe that.
You like this pick in the 5th round, 146th overall. I had this kid, Swinson. I had him much sooner being drafted.
I did too. I had him potentially, Chris, as like a top 100 guy.
Yeah.
Potentially.
LSU, edge guy, Bradyn Swinson. Okay. He's an older prospect, though. So he's 23 years old. Okay.
Chris, they found him when they went down to talk to see Campbell. They were like, who the hell? It was like, who's this kid?
Which happens a lot.
Yeah.
But this guy, listen, he's a pass rush specialist. So this is not going to be like a 3-down guy. This is a guy who's going to come in on passing downs. And by the way, Belichick, that wouldn't have worked. But with Vrabel in his system, this is a guy that can definitely be used. He had 8.5 sacks, 60 total pressures in 2024. That's big time in the SEC.
In the SEC, absolutely it is.
So, I mean, his initial contact is he's got great bend, flattens the corner so he can pursue. So basically, he comes around the edge, he flattens down and goes down the line of scrimmage and can pursue running backs. I've seen this guy. You love that tackle coming down. You love that edge guy coming down the line of scrimmage and hitting the running back before he even gets going. This is the kind of guy that can do that, Mark.
Yes, he is. I like the pick, Chris. Good pick. You said it. You said, Mark, they got to take Swinson here. He's still on the board. And they did. They took Swinson. And you liked the pick. You did. And you said the same thing with Farmer. Before they took him, you said, Mark, it's got to be Farmer. I don't know how he's still on the board. It's got to be Farmer.
Yeah.
And it was Farmer. So they did. Once you saw the read of the board and how it played out, Chris, you kind of predicted as it was happening live, you kind of predicted both those picks. as you were looking at the board unfold, you're like, Mark, it's got to be these guys. Who else?
Well, because I saw Mondin. It was Mondin and Swinson, and I said I'd love them to pick Mondin, but they're going to take Swinson.
And they took, which is okay, I guess. But listen, my only one guy I want to follow.
Yeah, go. We get time. Go ahead.
With Swinson, I want to follow Kyle Kanad out of South Carolina because he was the guy I wanted, Chris. Edge guy. I thought we should have taken him in the 3rd round. We didn't. The 2nd pick in the 3rd round. But anyway, I want to follow Kyle Kanad and see what he ends up becoming in comparison to Swinson.
Give me your grade. I mean, look, they've gotten A's. I mean, you're talking about Bleacher Report, Ringer, PFF, Yahoo Sports, USA Today, Kuiper, Fox. Everybody in the country has given them an A.
If they would have done what you and I said about taking Bradyn instead of Henderson, instead of the safety in the 4th round, you could have taken Trevor Etienne. That could have been your running back. Now, Etienne, Chris, in comparison to Henderson. Henderson's 5'10", 208, 208 pounds. I think you said he runs what, like a 4.3, 4.4?
4.4, yeah. 4.4.
Okay. Etienne is 5'9", 205, runs a 4.42. Elite pass catcher out of the backfield.
Played at the right place.
Georgia. Is Henderson a little quicker in the open field when he gets into – yeah, okay, probably his acceleration as he gets going maybe is better than Etienne's. Fine.
Sorry.
But in order to get Luther Bradyn, you could have gotten your running back in the 4th round, Chris. To your point, it's too early for a running back. The run on running backs was the 4th round.
Yeah.
Etienne, when you pick that safety at 106, Etienne was still on the board. You could have taken him. So
it sounded to me like the debate in that room was not Bradyn versus Henderson. It was Bradyn versus a
tackle guard from Arizona.
Which
that was the debate. Bradyn, Chris, they said because of the culture, they didn't want to go next year. They would take a guy like that. That would show up my ass. I went out of my mind when I heard that comment, Chris. Now, what a grade. I hate grading drafts because you never know what the hell's going to happen.
But, you know. Well, forget the grade. What do you think? Do you think they had a good draft or bad?
This draft, Chris, I think the middle part of this draft was one of the best middle parts of the draft we've had in years. The 3 guys they took, Chris, Wilson, Farmer, and Swinson, like you said, have the potential, all 3, to be contributors as rookies. When do we see that out of a Patriot draft, right? No, so right. I'm pleasantly surprised and I'm a little looking forward to seeing what these guys do. This draft, Chris, will be make or break with Will Campbell. Can he be a starting tackle? Can he be tackle? That's going to make or break this draft. If Campbell is a bust at tackle and he has to be put at guard, that's a bad draft, Chris. If you wasted the number 4 pick of the draft on a guy that couldn't, right? Henderson.
It's the first 3 picks that are going to determine the grade.
Kid Williams, Chris, does he become even a 2? I don't know. You're right. The first 3 picks will tell you what this draft was, right?
Exactly, because I think the next 3 were pretty good, except for the safety. So,
and then they took a long snapper, a kicker, and the long snapper, Chris. I guess they had a plan for that because then 2 days later they get rid of Cardona.
Yeah,
right.
And the kicker evidently was one of the top kickers in the country. So. Whatever. I just don't think you need to take a kicker, but
and then they took an offensive tackle from Missouri, who you actually liked in the 7th round, Chris.
I did like him, and I like the pick. And I also like somebody
good for he'd be a practice squad guy to develop him.
But even more than that, I like the undrafted free agents. Some of them that we brought in, especially the kid from Boston College and the kid receiver you're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about them next week. So make sure you're tuning into that.
You like that kid from Boston College they brought in, Chris?
I do. So, but. Weekly Rewind was presented by Corso Law Group, Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm, CorsoLawGroup.com. Allow us to be your voice. Hey, we come back. We're going to go into the coach's room. Coach's Corner is next.
No one ever thinks they will be in need of a criminal or traffic lawyer, but things happen. Corso Law Group is Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Call or go online to CorsoLawGroup.com and talk with these expert attorneys.
Back in with more Pats Nation. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about who these picks are, who's making these picks, a little bit of debate they had in the in the draft room for the Patriots. Let's do it in Coach's Corner. Joe?
Coach's Corner.
Okay, so, Mark, now they get the players.
Yep.
Okay? But how they got here, okay? Talking about Vrabel, Wolf. I mean, we've been talking about this for months. Who's making these picks? Okay? We heard from Vrabel that night talking about Will Campbell and some other things. But I thought more interesting was what Wolf had to say. And I think the more interesting thing was what he talked about last year versus this year, don't you?
Yeah, I thought that went. Oh, that drove you nuts when he made that comment. We're gonna have Joe play it.
Let's hear it, Joe.
How did you guys do things better this year than you did last year or in years past?
I just think the whole vision for the team was really good. Not that we didn't have that last year, or with Bill previously, but there was a lot of clear communication between Vrabel and our staff. He was around a lot in our meetings. It was just a really good process. And I would say, as the guys are still working on it right now, hopefully they're closing some of these undrafted free agent deals out. And this is on me from last year. We just didn't have an organized enough process. And Ryan Cowden and Coach Vrabel and Stretch really came in and help me organize this, and I think we're gonna have a productive group.
Wow,
3 strikes in there. Huh?
yeah.
Heard all 3. Hopefully our fans heard all 3.
Yeah, Mark, go.
He had to. He couldn't help himself. He had to throw Mayo's group under the bus.
And Bill.
And he had to throw Bill under the bus. He had to take another shot at Bill. They always got to take a shot at Bill, right? So here's the problem I have with what he said, Chris. So he takes a shot at them, and we weren't as organized the last couple of years, and they weren't as involved, and Mike was sitting in our team meetings, and Cowden helped organize things, and we were organized differently this year. And so my problem with that is, so those drafts were on you then, because you didn't have the input from some of these guys like we had this year, and so you made those picks then, your team and you. Why the hell do you still got a job then? You should have been fired.
That's one of your strikes, isn't it, Joe?
That's a strike.
Yeah.
Come on. What are you talking about? You're going to blame the other 2 regimes? As a GM, Chris, and the draft room falls under you. You should be happy that the coaching staff's not involved. Wouldn't you want to run the room? Anyways,
you can't have it both ways.
No.
Okay, you can't say, okay, it's on me. It's on me. Just what you said. It's on me. I didn't have these guys in the locker room. I didn't have Mayo. I didn't have the locker room. I didn't have these guys in the room to help. I didn't have Bill in the room. That's basically what he's saying.
Yeah.
It's on me. And then you say to help me organize. So which way do you want it? So do you really – what I would be saying to him, and I don't get why there's no follow-ups, wouldn't you really be saying as a follow-up, okay, Eliot, so is what you're saying that you weren't prepared then? That you needed some other help to get you organized? Is that what you're saying to us right now? Because that's what you said. Well, if that's the case, what the hell are you doing in this role? Like, as Mark just said, what are you doing here? What would you say you do here?
I'm interested, Chris, if that whole scenario with Ladd McConkey last year, if that would have played out if Vrabel's group was here, if they would have let him drop out of that position, go down in the draft, take Polk over McConkey because he's rated high. You got him rated higher than McConkey, who's an SEC wide receiver out of Georgia.
Not if they had eyeballs in their head.
No, but based on what Vrabel drafted this year, and you look at where these guys came from, I know Kyle Williams came from Washington State. I get it. But you got an SEC receiver sitting there and you trade out of the pick, that he should have been fired. The day that McConkey came in here and lit us up, Wolf should have been fired with Mayo.
Yeah, just again, it's just amazing to me. It's amazing to me how foolish this person is. He doesn't even understand what he's saying. I mean, you break down the things he said, and a guy, I can't get past this point. Like, I can't get past the point. You're trying to throw the previous regime under the bus, but in doing so, you did it to yourself because you basically said, I needed them to organize me.
Yeah.
Kind of shine some light on Aaron Rodgers a little bit to now get a feel for him wanting to get the hell out of there way back when. That right around
in Green Bay, you mean?
Yeah. It's kind of shed some light on his frustration of being you start to go, oh, wait, this guy now has a track record of.
Yeah, because he wasn't happy with their drafts.
Right.
No.
So, Wolf was there,
Yeah, so it's just it's
so there's that. So I mean,
there's that.
and then the saying, well, he also said, well, we had a debate. We had a good, healthy debate about, I think it was the second pick, right, Mark? About this Henderson.
It was about Henderson because they were debating on and off. We talked about this when we went through our draft picks last segment. They were debating on whether to take a tackle guard from Arizona. Yeah. And they settled on Henderson because the tackle guard got picked before they picked the pick before.
Well, I'm wondering who the hell wanted the guard over. I take the running back over the guard in this situation, no?
Yes, absolutely. But he doesn't elaborate on who was on what side of that debate. Right?
Well, of course he doesn't. He's a little weasel. He doesn't elaborate on anything. He just.
But you bet your ass. You bet your ass if he's the one who wanted to tackle guard and Henderson turns into being a stiff, he'll throw that nugget out there. Well, we didn't really want Henderson, but Mike's group wanted him, so we took him. But we were more leaning towards the guard. He would throw them under the bus in a minute.
Listen, Vrabel knows who this guy is, and like you said, scouts have already been fired.
The area scout for the Southeast, Chris, which is the SEC, ACC regions are ACC is more Mid-Atlantic. The Southeast region, Chris, which is the SEC, 2 days after the draft, that guy's gone.
So okay, so now we got these guys. We know what's going on, or we think we know what's going on in these rooms. So now, how do these players now affect the current roster? We've already seen, as you said in the last segment, they drafted a long snapper. Cardone is gone. So who's on the way out? I mean, is Vidarian Lowe days numbered? Is Cole Strange? They didn't pick up his 50-year option. That tells you they like the guards that they picked and the center. They like the
guards and the centers that they picked. Yep. So I'm just looking, Chris, at.
And also, while you're doing that, how's that going to affect the backfield now? Because Henderson's a specialist, like we talked about, so he's not going to be an every down back. And I guess that gives Stevenson a sigh of relief a little bit. But I got to believe, okay, I don't know how Gibson feels about it, but I got to believe that Mike Vrabel's looking at Stevenson saying, you put the ball on the ground 7 times, okay? That's unacceptable. Yep. So, I can't imagine there's not going to be because I know they took a running back in the undrafted. So I'm wondering how that's going to affect the backfield because if Henderson doesn't get on the damn field, Mark, what was the point of the pick?
Yeah, there was no point. And Chris, I just wanted to pick something I had highlighted on Bone. I just wanted to find it. So the wide receiver room is interesting, Chris, too.
Yeah, well, that's the biggest one. That's why I knew you were getting to that.
You take Kyle Williams. So now you're going to assume he makes the team. The way they've talked about this, you're going to assume he makes the team. Okay. So now you've got him. You got to assume.
Well, they got the puppets talking for him. So, yeah, you got to believe.
You have to assume, obviously, if he's healthy.
I think he's Randy Moss.
Diggs and Hollins, who they signed as a free agent, are going to make the team. Okay.
Yep. Diggs, Hollins, this kid.
Hollins, this kid, that's 3. You have to assume he was a second-round pick. They're going to give Polk a shot?
I guess.
I don't know. I guess.
So wasn't Baker, right?
That's 4.
Baker third?
Fourth,
yeah.
Then I'm assuming you're going to give Demario Douglas a shot in the slot, right?
I see that, yeah.
You see that? Kendrick Bourne.
Culture.
But, Chris, Kendrick Bourne.
Leadership.
Has recorded only 1,945 yards and 11 touchdowns in 4 seasons with the Patriots. What the hell is that?
Nothing.
His cap hit for the upcoming season, Chris, is $7.7 million with a potential cap savings of $6.3 million if he's cut after June 1st. I think everyone thinks he's on the roster. I think it's going to be him because of the cheapness of the ownership. He's going to be the casualty, Chris, unless he comes out and looks like a superstar. They're going to cut the $6.3 million man. That's the savings. They ain't which means they'll keep. And I think Baker could very well. He looked so bad last year. He was so lost. Unless he picks things up.
He was on the field very little.
I think Booty stays. Everyone says, "Oh, he's on the trading block." What are you getting for Booty? No one's giving you anything, Chris. What, a 7th round pick? What are you going to get? I think Booty stays. I think Douglas stays. I think Hollins, Diggs, this kid Kyle Williams, Booty. I think you may see a veteran come in too over the summer. I think Bourne's going to get released eventually because of the salary, and I don't see Chris. You have Booty. Baker,
you see Booty, Douglas, and then the three new guys.
Yep.
Hollins. Okay, so you see those 5.
That's 5, and then the debate's going to be between the
Polk,
6 guys going to be Polk, Baker, and Bourne. But I think Bourne don't make it, Chris, because of the contract. I think it's going to be between Polk and Baker for that 6th spot.
Well, I'm going to throw a little monkey wrench into this too, and tell you this: the undrafted free agent that they took, and I know next week we're going
to go through him. He might be the fly in the ointment because he may sneak in there.
He may sneak in there as an Edelman type.
Yes, and that was my comparison, was Edelman. I actually had that kid listed as a 7th round pick. Take him in the 7th round with one of your 3 picks on my sheet. But, they got him as an undrafted free agent. But
he'll probably survive a practice squad.
Oh, what do you think about Bourne? You don't think he's in jeopardy?
Oh, I do. I think he should be gone. And I think the contract, I think his age, I think the lack of production. I mean, you're getting rid of guys all over the place for lack of production. And by the way, on the defensive side, hey, Jennings needs to pay attention now. He's got a problem. And Tavai. So we'll pay attention to
Chris,
these.
let me ask you this. How do you keep Polk, I guess, because he was a 2nd round draft pick? Is that the only reason why you're keeping him, just because?
I don't like that idea. I don't think. Listen, I said it when they drafted him. I think Polk stinks. I don't think he's a good receiver. He's a number 3 receiver on a good Washington team. But they play in a crap conference too. I get it. They got to the national championship and then got their ass kicked. Okay, so I mean, I think for me, I'll give Baker a shot before I give Polk a shot.
Okay, all right.
Personally, so we'll see what happens, but. We'll pay attention to this because moving forward, we're going to keep talking about these rooms now. Now that they're all New England Patriots, we get to mini camp, get to these things, see them in shorts and T-shirts. We're going to have a lot of discussion on that. But Coach's Corner was presented by CORSO Catone, the real deal New England Field, Saturdays, noon Eastern. We got Catone's comments. We got Yankees, Red Sox, and, of course, the Boston Celtics in their playoff run. But when we come back, going to hear from, we're going to talk, I think, Belichick in Heated Hotline, unless Joe has something special or different. Stick around, no flipping.
I'm seriously, I think I lost my mind.
It was an exciting show.
I want Murray.
That's
it.
What is wrong with
Get him on this damn show.
You lost your mind tonight.
That's all I have to say.
Lost your mind.
What are you writing now?
Stop working over here. You're talking about nonsense. I'm working.
That's why we are the real deal New England Field. It's going to be real.
Back in with more Pats Nation. All right, Joe, let's have it.
I had to because we had so many write-ins about this. People have been talking about it all week, and here it is.
Of a messy split from Robert Kraft and the Patriots in early 2024.
He's got a cold, so I'm not going to kiss him.
I have to ask about Robert Kraft because 24 years together, 6 Super Bowls. Unless I'm wrong, he's not in this book. How come?
He's not. Well, again, it's about my life lessons in football, and it's really more about the ones that I experienced directly.
But he's not even in the acknowledgement section.
Correct.
Correct.
Do you feel like you were treated with dignity and respect when you were let go by Robert Kraft?
Yeah, well, it was a mutual decision for us to part ways.
He said fired.
it was a mutual decision.
Okay. Well, while he's queuing up the next one, which I know is coming. First of all, I have no problem with the way he feels about Kraft. I mean, Kraft did him.
No, I don't have a problem with that.
I mean, he did him dirty with that whole Apple thing
No,
and the
he
way
didn't.
he handled Gerard Mayo and the whole backdoor stuff that went on there, right?
Yeah, he did him dirty. I don't have a problem. Listen, I don't have any problem with his animosity towards Kraft at all.
You know what, though? Now that I listened to this a second time, I feel I hear more animosity toward the interviewer because he's like, basically he said, I didn't read the book, but Kraft's not in it, right? And he doesn't answer him. And then he basically says, oh, he's not even in the acknowledgement.
So the interviewer says, I didn't read the book?
No, he basically alludes to it. He's like, basically Kraft's not in it. The way he says it, now I'm thinking, basically, Belichick's probably looking at him going, you didn't even read this book.
I think Belichick was
acknowledgments. And
I think Belichick was pissed off because that is outside the scope. In other words, if you're talking about just what's in the book, if he ain't in the book, then what are we talking about it for?
Right.
So in other words, you're trying to create, like if your CBS is sitting there trying to create the bit of the gotcha moment, right, where you're saying, how come Bob Kraft isn't in here? Well, I mean, that's not part of the book. What the hell are we talking about that for? Right. But the more interesting part of all this is what is this.
Oh yeah, here it is. Here's the most interesting part.
Everybody in the world seems to be following this relationship. They've got an opinion about your private life. It's got nothing to do with them, but they're invested in it. How do you deal with that?
I've never been too worried about what everybody else thinks. Just try to do what I feel like is best for me and what's right.
How did you guys meet?
Not talking about this.
No?
No.
It's a topic neither one of them is comfortable commenting on.
Okay, so that, of course, again, this interview was CBS, if we had to mention it, CBS morning show.
So
that was Jordan Hudson, the girlfriend, in the background.
That was Sunday morning. But you know what I don't get, Chris? So if CBS really wanted to do that interview correctly, on CBS morning during the week, they have Nate Burleson on, who does the NFL on Sundays for CBS. Why wouldn't you have had Nate Burleson interview him? Why do you got this guy who knows nothing about football interviewing Bill Belichick? You should have Nate Burleson do it. At least Bill would have respected him. He was an NFL player. He was an all-pro. He was a wide receiver. Like, that would have been a better person to interview Bill about his book and his life's learnings in football. You put this guy who knows nothing about football, interview him. Like, even that was a poor choice by CBS. Why is he interviewing him? It should have been Burleson.
You know why? Because coming in, it's gotten all kinds of traction now. It's on mainstream
and no
media.
one's brought that up, Chris. Why wasn't Nate Burleson doing the interview?
Because he's not important enough anymore.
Belichick
not important.
Okay.
He's not an important enough figure anymore. Now, he's become that this week because of the antics and the nonsense that went on during the interview, and the girlfriend who's saying, we're not talking about that. Who now? Who the hell are you now, all of a sudden? Here comes the unsilent majority over here. Who are you? You know what I mean? So that would brings it all to head now. That this relationship, what the hell's the story? Is Belichick losing it? Giving her all kinds of power? Listen, this girl, okay, she knows exactly what she's doing. She's done this before, evidently, on other types of relationships.
Chris, she's made $9 million since they started dating in real estate.
In real estate portfolio is now $9 million. Where
$9
the hell
million.
That's a 24-year-old? Where you getting that?
Not happening. My son's certainly not going to have a $9 million portfolio at 24 years old in real estate.
I wish. No.
Right?
So clearly this is all from him. Clearly this is a mutual gain benefit sort of relationship, whatever. Whatever they're getting from each other, it's fine. Okay? That's up to them. But you're going to parade this stooge, you're going to parade this trash out in front of the world and have her handling you like she's beige?
Listen.
Okay? That's who he needs. He needs to get him out of Boston College and get him down to where he is, where, his longtime assistant in New England. Because that crap would have never gone down with him there.
No.
Because they would have gone to them ahead of time and say, look, this is what we're not talking about. I'm going to talk about this. Because this is a softball morning show.
Chris, supposedly that was established. If you listen, Belichick made a comment this week after that said, we had an agreement, with my people had an agreement with them that was not going to be, we were only talking about the book, and what was brought up was not supposed to be brought up. That was the agreement. And then CBS rebuttals that and says we had no agreement in place with him. That's not, absolutely wasn't said.
I believe CBS. Because you know why I believe them? Here's why. Because it's a morning softball show. Yeah. These Sunday morning shows to promote books and stuff, they're as easy as you can get. They're simple questions. They're made to promote the book. They're made to promote. They're not trying to get you, Chris, gotcha, whatever.
So, Chris, something had to happen during that interview to make this guy, Tony DeCapo, I think his name was. Yeah. Somebody must have pissed at him. Belichick's responses had to have pissed him off, where he said, "You know what? Screw him," and then he started getting other stuff. Yeah, because you know what I mean. Because they probably would have edited that stuff out, like the piece that Joe played with the girlfriend. That should have gotten edited out, but they kept it in.
Normally, it would in those kinds of settings, but they were such jerks about it. Evidently, she stormed off the set as well.
You have brought up numerous times, Chris, when they asked the question about how did you meet, he should have just said, we've talked about this before. I don't want to make a big deal about it. We met on a plane like 3 years ago. We've already, we've talked about that. Say, I'd rather just talk about the book. Yeah. But that's how we met.
Yeah, you should have said, yeah, we met on a plane. She's great. Look at her over there. Doesn't she look good? Say something. Say something like that. I don't know. I don't care. The problem is, Mark, he's still operating under the same idea that he can control the narrative. He can control the media like he did in New England because of those puppets. Okay. It's not happening. And it's not happening because CBS could give a rat's ass who Bill Belichick is.
Well, Chris, you said this week you had picked up on something. I believe it was Corin said, and it might have came up on the Felger and Mass show too, but definitely I believe it was Corin. You said he brought up the fact that Belichick is going to realize this national media is not the local media. We would only go so far and back off because we needed access. So we weren't going to push. CBS don't give a shit about access to him. They pushed and they busted his beans.
Yeah, and I don't think Corin meant to do what he did. I don't think he
meant to say that. It just came out.
He said what he said, and afterwards you got to say, "Uh-oh, did I just say to everybody that I wasn't doing my job 100%?"
Yeah, because I wanted access to Bill.
So I knew I had to shut my mouth, and I couldn't push, and I couldn't be a journalist, and I couldn't do the things that I'm paid to do. I couldn't do that. Did you just admit that? I think you did.
Yeah, he admitted it. You know what I want to know? I want to know what vitamins Bill's taking. He must take some good vitamins. I'll tell you that. She's, good.
Hey, you know what? What the hell? But you know what? This girl's unqualified. And by the last thing I'll say before we go, Steve Belichick.
You said, I was going to say Belichick's wife.
Steve Belichick's wife came out and said she doesn't know what she's doing. She shouldn't be in that position. And none of the family likes her.
And we're going to close on that note, Joe.
We're going to close on that note, gentlemen. The Pats Nation was presented by CORSO Catone. Saturdays, noon Eastern. And we're going to have Celtics playoffs, Catone's comments, anything you bring. And come back next weekend, 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern, where we are going to have more draft breakdown, discuss the undrafted free agents, all that and so much more. We are the Pats Nation. Enjoy your Sunday.